Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast, episode number 173. It's January 21st, 2022.
Yeah.
I think on the nosebleeds I said today's date, but
that's okay. They'll understand.
It's a beautiful Friday, hopefully, where
Hope
you
so.
are. And we got a lot to go over today. UFC 270 is looking like one of the most dramatic cards I've ever seen.
Yes, it is.
And before we get into it, though, Dominic, I haven't seen you in, 2 days? I don't know.
Few days. Too long.
How have you been? How are you feeling going in?
Life's good, man. The first pay-per-view of the year, obviously. Excited to break that down. We love our pay-per-view events. And when there is the heavyweight strap on the line, it literally doesn't get bigger than that. Not to mention, we've got the biggest guys going for the belt and the smallest guys going for the belt in the co-main event. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think we've got some plans to see some friends that we haven't hung out with in a while this weekend to watch this card. So it's good. It's been a good week. It should be a good weekend. Excited to break this card down with you, my friend. How are you doing?
You said we as if I would be joining, but I am in Indiana, so
Right. Yes.
I will not be joining the boys. But I feel good. It's as you can tell, room is still echoed as shit. I bought soundproofing, but didn't know that these cheap ass panels I bought, like, they don't come with any. I thought it was gonna be like one side kind of sticky.
Yeah.
And you just stick it to the wall. Oops, because I hit something.
It sounded like you just broke something.
No, it's my boom arm that's just laying here. I hit it. But then I tried to hang them up on the walls and they just fell because there's nothing on the other side.
Yeah.
So I got to figure out what I'm going to do there because
you're still improvising.
You guys don't know this, but what's in front of me is nothing. I mean, there's stuff in front of me, but I'm not like up. I'm not facing a wall. I'm like,
yeah.
Like I'm in a corner right now. Like you might be able to tell when I try to hang some stuff up, but like the corner's like right behind me. So I'm in kind of an awkward spot in here. So I don't know how it's gonna work if I try to hang panels up like right here. I might try to do a trifold or a bifold.
Yeah.
And put the panels up that way. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
He'll figure it out. Yeah.
But for now, you got to deal with the echo.
The Joey community believes in you.
Yeah. Fight announcements. March 19th, Dominic, it is confirmed the UFC will be heading back to the O2 in London. So, unfortunately, Columbus will not be the first fight night back with fans. But, it's okay. Nothing wrong with silver, right?
That's true.
But we did have a big fight added to this card even though I guess it's technically not official yet, Dana might have jumped the gun a little bit.
Yeah.
But Paddy Pimblett, it looks like, will be on this card and will be facing the veteran Jared Gordon. So Dominic, when you heard this fight announcement, I'm curious, how did you feel in terms of Paddy Pimblett? Obviously is turning into quite the star potentially. People are really riding high on this guy, really think a lot of him, really like his personality. But this is only going to be his second fight in the UFC. Do you think this is the appropriate next step for Paddy Pimblett?
Yeah, I actually really like this fight, this matchup. In Paddy's debut, he was up against Luigi Vendramini, another striker. And not that Paddy's necessarily a striker. He's fantastic on the ground. But in that one, it was a striking slugfest. And we saw Paddy get hurt early, face adversity, end up getting the KO TKO in that one. But now going up against Jared Gordon, this dude has one idea, one game plan, and he's not going to stop until he can implement it. And that is to, quite frankly, wrestle fuck someone. And it's going to be Paddy on the other side of the octagon to try and get a hold of. If he can get Paddy down and hold him there, I want to see how Paddy can be off of his back again. He's been known to be a submission ace in the past, so we could have quite a bit of grappling in this one. I'm pretty intrigued to see how this plays out. Can Paddy keep it on the feet? Does he want to grapple with Jared Gordon and kind of make a statement down there? I like where the UFC's head's at here. Jared Gordon, called for this fight when he won his last fight in the octagon. So, yeah, I like this one. I do.
I actually really like it too. I've been a bit more vocal on. I like Paddy Pimblett, but I've been vocally against, I guess, the kind of hype he's getting. I mean, I think there's people who are big into MMA, people who watch a lot of MMA, who I think were hoping that Paddy Pimblett was going to get matched up with like Tony Ferguson or somebody like that. Like, I mean, it's kind of crazy how high people think this guy already is. And I think his one performance in the UFC was not a good illustration of that.
Yeah.
He got a first round knockout, which he's not a striker. He is the opposite. I mean, the guy's not really one for the hands. He's usually quite the ace on the ground, finishes on the feet, but nearly got knocked out doing it. Luigi Vendramini, not even in the UFC anymore. You probably should have made that a lot easier if you're going to be a guy who is top 10 already. I mean, come on. It's a little crazy. So here, going against Jared Gordon, Jared is literally in that kind of that next level outside the top 15. He's in that range. He's had some tough losses. I remember his loss to Charles Oliveira where he got knocked out pretty quickly, but now you look at what Charles has done. But, he's strung together some decent wins. You're right. He has kind of one way he wants to get his fight to and one way he wants to get it done. And it kind of puts an interesting wrinkle in this fight. I don't see Paddy. I don't know what the striking matchup would be here between him and Jared. I really don't. But Jared having the edge in terms of experience in the UFC and being more of the veteran here should make for a good fight. I mean, Paddy Pimblett, the young stud who's riding a wave of momentum. But Jared Gordon's that guy that likes to slow things down, likes to be have more of an attention to detail in his fights. And because of that, could this be kind of, I mean, you're going to be walking into the O2 to a crowd of rabid fans.
Yeah.
Who are all Team Paddy.
Yes.
How is that going to affect your performance in the fight? That's a question, I think.
100% is going to play a factor.
Following that, this pretty much is the prospect edition of our fight announcements because Ian Garry, this one's hot off the press. Ian Garry got his next fight, UFC 273 on April 9th, and he's going up against Darian Weeks. Obviously, Darian a bit more of an unknown, but Dominic, Ian Garry going to be back. Are you happy with this matchup and him being put on the pay-per-view?
Yeah, I'm so happy to see Ian Garry back. When he debuted, I can't remember exactly what I said in the group chat, but let's just say I'm pretty high on Mr. Garry, to say the least. He just looked so good in that fight, and the crisp striking and so precise, and the shot that he landed, the knockout blow, was just chef's kiss. It was beautiful. So I'm excited to see him back in there. He's very brash. He's very confident, right on the edge of cockiness in a way. He's looking to be that next wave for Ireland. So this is a big deal for him. Putting him on another pay-per-view card, because I think he was on a pay-per-view card before. I don't remember which one it was. Prelims, obviously, but you get my point. And like you said, Darian Weeks is a bit of an unknown here, but it kind of is that type of fight where you can come in, not a lot of pressure, but spoil the UFC's potential new golden boy. It could be a fun fight, man. I'm excited to see those guys square off.
See, I think this is a lot of pressure on Darian Weeks because he's already 0-1 in UFC. He debuted against Brian Barberena, which... Barberena is one of the most underappreciated scrappers of our lifetime.
Yes.
Not a guy who will win a lot of fights, but my God, he will take you to the brink no matter who you are. But before that, again, Darian Weeks only 5-1. So he was 5-0 when he entered the UFC. Did have a win on LFA, so that was kind of what got him into the UFC. He could present something for sure. It looks like 4 of his 5 wins via finish, all TKOs or KOs. So definitely that kind of matchup. And Ian Garry did not necessarily have the cleanest of performances either against Jordan Williams. Yeah. I mean, Jordan was arguably winning that round before he kind of got caught at the very end. So interesting striking matchup, but obviously all eyes on Ian Garry for this one.
100%. Yep.
And finally, we go to Bellator. We got the confirmation for that welterweight title as they will also be going back to London.
Shoo-wee.
And that welterweight title will be on the line as Yaroslav Amosov looks to make the first defense of his title against the hometown product, Michael Venom Page. May 13th, Dominic, MVP, getting that title shot. It's not the path that I think most would have predicted to get MVP to a title fight. A lot of bumps on the road, even the win that got him here is kind of a iffy one, but he's here. He's finally time to cash in on that hype and on all the momentum or whatever's left of that momentum anyway. But he's going up against Amosov, who has looked pretty much perfect. So how do you see this matchup going, and is there a lot of pressure on MVP here?
I mean, when you say perfect for Amosov, 26-0. Definitely perfect, Noah. And, there is a ton of pressure on MVP, 100%. Not only is he, finally getting this coveted title shot after all these years and all of the setbacks, not even setbacks, he only has one loss, but it feels like he's had more than one loss, just like in terms of the competition. And there's just been questionable matchups, and we've discussed that before for MVP during his Bellator career, but now he's going to be challenging for the title against an undefeated stud who made it look easy when he got the belt, and it's in London, in your home country, in front of your home crowd. That is a ton of pressure for MVP here, and he's no longer in kind of, those younger days of his career. He's like 33, 34 now, so he is kind of edging, the end of his prime, so there's only so many more great performances we could see from him now or never for MVP to win this title, if you ask me.
I think it is now or never. He's either going to win it here or he's never going to be a champion. And not that that's necessarily like, if you're Bellator, there's still probably big fights you can do with him after this. But if you're MVP, I mean, this is what you've been waiting for. It took you a long time to get here. A lot of people thought you were kind of done at different points. You fight, scratch, clawed your way to a title fight. Didn't make it look pretty all the time, but then sometimes it did look really pretty.
Yeah.
But you're going up against literally the final boss. I mean, Yaroslav is the worst type of matchup for MVP and really just a motherfucker to deal with.
Yes.
And, for a guy like MVP who the last few fights for him, he's winning, but it's not necessarily inspiring a lot of confidence in his chances.
Yeah.
This could end up being very one-sided, I fear.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how that is going to play out. It's an interesting matchup.
Yeah. But that's going to wrap it up for the fight announcements, and we're going to switch to another promotion, Dominic.
That's true.
One that is airing their first card in the United States in 10 days, or maybe it's 9 days now.
God, it's that soon, huh?
Yeah, so Eagle FC 44 is finalized. And as you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, or I guess even on Spotify, we do have the card pulled up here from Twitter. 10 fights. Dominic, when you look at this card, what kind of stands out to you? Are you on board with this debut? I know we've been kind of hot and cold on Eagle FC, but for this debut, are you in or are you out?
I mean, I'm definitely intrigued, to say the least. I mean, we've talked about it before. They made the heavyweight main event a lot more manageable and reasonable is the word I was looking for. So I am excited to see how those two big boy strikers will face off. Obviously, the return of Rashad Evans, Ray Borg, even on this main card here. And I know you kind of wanted to take a peek at the prelims too. So here's the prelims as well that are going to be on this card. I know you mentioned it in the DMs, but they've got Yorgan De Castro. They've got Loic Radzhabov from the PFL. So I'm definitely curious to see how it will play out, how much hype will be garnered around it. Again, the fact that it's happening in literally a week, I didn't even realize, but it's creeping up here. So I'm excited. What about you?
I'm cautiously looking forward to it.
Yeah.
That's. I refuse to kind of get overexcited anymore for Eagle FC.
That's our whole relationship with the brand.
But I am excited to watch it, to see the presentation, what it's going to look like. I know we had commentary is going to have like Henry Cejudo.
Felicia Spencer. And it might be someone else too.
A lot of good names that are kind of, getting on board with this product. And the card has enough names that stick out. And I think there's going to be some surprises here. Some people that make kind of their debut in the U.S. And when I look at that main card specifically, those two Dagestani products to open that main card, they're getting pretty favorable matchups. I'm not going to say anything about if that's calculated or not, but I think there's potential for those two guys to potentially make big showings. And then obviously you got the Rashad Evans and Ray Borgs that might bring some eyes here. Rashad Evans, I'll be interested to see kind of how he looks. But yeah, Yorgan De Castro, another familiar guy. Loic Radzhabov was the runner-up for welterweight.
I was about to say, I thought he was. That's who was with Roche Manfio?
Roche Manfio, yes.
Yeah.
So for him to open this card, I mean, it's a lot of good, high-quality MMA, I think. But we'll see how it turns out.
It's what did you say? It's cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Is that the good?
I'm
best way to
cautiously excited, cautiously optimistic. I am cautious, but intrigued.
We're just cautious.
Yeah. Now with that, we'll move on to the next story here. This one's kind of ongoing.
Yeah.
Because there's other factors at play, but ultimately, what we know now, Amanda Nunes has left American Top Team.
Wow.
And she is going to start her own team, Dominic. Now, this is not the first time she switched camps. When she lost to Kat Zingano, she actually left MMA Masters to go to ATT. So, first time losing with MMA Masters, she left. First time losing with ATT, she leaves. Not saying anything about her for that. I'm just saying that's how it went. So, Dominic, I don't know if I should lead you in the direction I want to lead you for this discussion, or if I should let you probably just go there on your own. But I'm gonna just come out and say it, because it's kind of like the elephant in the room here. Is the reason Amanda Nunes is leaving because of a potential fight with Kayla Harrison?
Well, my immediate thoughts when I saw this headline was, hell yes, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But then the nose, Ariel Helwani, comes out and says on his Substack that the PFL looks like the front runner to re-sign Kayla Harrison.
All but done is what he said.
All but done. Yeah, so I don't know. But in general, regardless of if we were going to get that fight or not, I think Amanda Nunes leaving American Top Team, that's a big deal. We're talking, this is like the most elite camp there is in the game. We've got ATT, we've got AKA, Team Alpha Male, so on and so forth. But man, when you're talking about high level fighters across male and female, across all regional and big promotions for MMA, this is the gym, man. So, the fact that she's leaving, and when it says start her own team, like, are you wanting to start your own gym and kind of create a future endeavor from, when you're done fighting and obviously train for a potential rematch with Juliana or whatever? Or are you just going to go to a whole new camp? I mean, I have a lot of questions here, and this is quite literally all of the information that we have. But I think it is a big talking head, one where a lot more could come of this. So don't look past this headline. It may kind of be in the shadows of all this stuff for UFC 270 in the fight week, but this is a big deal, man. We're talking, again, the greatest female fighter ever leaving her gym that she's been at for years following a loss of her bantamweight title. So I think it's quite a big deal.
Yeah, there's plenty of reasons this could have happened. I mean, maybe there's some other factors that we just don't even know about, but I can't deny when I heard this, and then I kind of heard the follow-up about Kayla Harrison, how she's probably going back to the PFL, it makes me a little worried for Amanda Nunes' future.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is the best move for her to ultimately try to gain back that bantamweight title. I mean, leaving one of the best teams out there, one of the most high level. Now, it kind of makes me wonder what happened in the lead up to the Juliana Pena fight. Did that play a factor?
Yeah.
Did she feel like she wasn't getting enough attention to her camp, or was she not giving enough attention to being in the gym every day? I heard that Juliana Pena kind of said that was potentially a factor that she had been hearing. All I know is Amanda Nunes did not look like Amanda Nunes on fight night. And there was a reason for that. There's got to be.
Yeah, well, and I just wanted to make a quick point on what you said before you finish up. And when you said the attention, did Amanda lose some attention, being that, she's at one of the biggest gyms in the world? Well, Colby Covington left American Top Team for that very reason as well. He felt that the gym was so big, there's so many big-name fighters, he wasn't getting that one-on-one divided attention that he wanted. Thus, he pursues an entirely new gym, and he's done great with his new camp as well. So it's not like it's the end-all, be-all if Amanda leaves this camp, because she could, for all we know, win that belt back. But I'm just saying, I think it is a notable point, and I wanted to kind of link that to what you said as well.
But at the same time, this is the women's GOAT. You're telling me she can't get one-on-one attention?
Yeah, that's true.
Still active, still fighting. I don't know. I can't, every time I bring it up, I'm like at a loss of words at what happened in that Juliana Pena fight.
Yeah.
That was not a good showing. And I don't know why that, maybe more of it lies on her, and maybe it could be unrelated to why she's leaving. I don't know. It just doesn't seem that this is all about the Kayla Harrison thing anymore. It seems like there's more at play. Just maybe her and ATT just aren't on the same page anymore. Maybe she's not, maybe she's not taking it as serious as she once did. Maybe the camp, again, is kind of preparing for her to a future without Amanda Nunes, that are putting more focus on people like Kayla Harrison. I don't know.
Right.
But it has me worried. That's all I can say. And I've seen some people go off and kind of do their own thing, and they do a very good job at it. And I have no doubt that Amanda Nunes is literally the women's GOAT. She is her own best resource, I guess, for finding the right talent to put around her, the right training partners.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't love it, but I understand that it's a move that's probably beyond just a move for her fight career. Maybe it's just a long-term investment. I don't know. It has me concerned as far as specifically Juliana Pena ring match.
Yeah. I need more. That's all I'm saying.
I think once Kayla's decision becomes final, we can really start to
dig.
Yeah.
Find something. There's got to be something.
Yeah. But let's move on to UFC 270 happening Saturday night.
Oh, boy.
And it starts with that main event, Dominic. Champion versus champion. The fourth title unification bout in UFC heavyweight history. Francis Ngannou looks to make the first defense of his title against potentially his toughest test that he'll ever face in Ciryl Gane. And the odds kind of illustrate that.
Yeah.
So, Dominic, where to start with this one? I mean, there is a big story going on beyond the fight, behind the scenes. Ngannou's contract negotiations are kind of a mess with the UFC. And really, this all starts with pretty much Ngannou wins the belt.
Mm-hmm.
He goes home to Cameroon, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be with family, to, obviously show off the
celebrate.
belt. Yeah,
yep.
Says the UFC comes to him with the fight between him and Derek Lewis, which, by the way, only happened because John Jones' negotiations kind of fell through.
True.
So they come to Ngannou and they say, we want you to headline with Derek Lewis in August. Ngannou says he can't be ready on that date, but that he could do September. The UFC, without really letting him know, decide to just do an interim belt instead. Ciryl Gane gets put in to fight Derek Lewis. And that's kind of where this all started. And really, you can even go back further to the fact that Ciryl Gane is trained by the very coach that brought Francis Ngannou to the highest level. And then Ngannou left, and now him and that coach does not have a lot of nice things to say about Ngannou.
Not at all.
And you see the clip backstage at UFC 269 or 268.
That video is cold.
When Ngannou just walks past them, and you can see that they're just, Gane, man.
He's like so nice. He's like,
he's
What
kind
the
of
heck,
he's
man?
kind of gotten dragged into the middle of all this.
I know, dude.
And then Ngannou did later say he's like, I have no ill will towards Gane, but he was with that coach, and I'm not gonna, acknowledge
him. Yeah.
So this has really gone off the rails. I mean, then Dana White's taking a lot of shots at Francis Ngannou's management.
Mm-hmm.
Ngannou's saying that he refuses to come to any sort of middle ground in terms of he wants to box, and he doesn't want to be making. He wants to make more than his 500 or 600,000 he's been making per fight. And he ultimately wants opportunities to box. And he thinks that can be done under the UFC's umbrella, but he's refusing to sort of sway on that. There's actually a great video that details all of this that MMA On Point just put out. Highly recommend everybody go check it out because it really does the timeline justice of showing kind of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of where we're at right now. Now you have him looking to defend against Ciryl Gane, who's the interim champion. We haven't seen Ngannou in 10 months. If Ngannou wins, the contract is really weird because it sounds like if he wins I don't know how it works.
I saw something about like it extends it 1 year or 3 fights.
Yeah, it's like he could sit out, basically win or lose here. I think he could sit out a whole nother year and then leave.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't know that because the UFC with their contracts, if you're a champion holding the belt, typically it extends.
Right.
Like a champion who currently holds the belt, they usually put themselves in a situation where they can't leave.
Exactly.
With the belt.
Unless you vacate. Right.
Yes. So I don't know how his contract works, but it looks like it's coming up. He's got like one fight left.
Yeah.
Who knows if that'll even happen. But Dominic, we just laid a lot out there. And none
There's
of it
the drama.
None of it really involves the actual X's and O's itself.
Ooh.
So I think the biggest question going in is how does all of this affect the fight itself? How does it affect the challenger, Ciryl Gane? But more importantly, how heavy does it weigh on the champion, Francis Ngannou?
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about this personally, but I feel like, this fight weekend specific, and I'm not making accusations, and it could just be like how I'm feeling, but I almost feel like Ciryl Gane is the champion already in terms of like the marketing and the way everything's going. I don't know. It's weird. And then you mentioned all of this drama that they've trained together, they've sparred together. There's footage of it. The coaching, how Francis left to come here to the States. He now trains with Extreme Couture and Eric Nixick, who's just been an incredible coach the past couple of years. That gym's amazing. And then you look at this fight. There's so much pressure here for Francis Ngannou because of all of this drama that is out into the public, and you've got the president Dana White talking about you all the time, and this and that, and there's so much tension. There's so much tension in this fight. Francis with the UFC, Francis and Gane, Francis and the coach. There's so many factors here that make it that much more exciting to me. And don't get me wrong, there's pressure on Ciryl Gane here too. I mean, a lot of people, I'm not saying people dislike Gane, but a lot of people hated, including us. We did not like that they made that interim title fight, at least so quickly. Because, I mean, Francis won the belt in March. They did an interim fight in August. That's 3 months in between, or 4 months, whatever my math is. So, I love Ciryl Gane just as much as the next person, but this feels like just a legitimate title defense for Francis to me. I view Gane as the number one contender. He just so happens to have that interim strap. So he has this pressure to live up to, hey, I've got this interim strap. I'm not just some other guy. I'm not some pushover, and he can come out here and make a statement, beat the most dangerous man potentially in UFC history, and become the undisputed champ. There's so much tension, so much pressure on both guys. You look at the X's and O's of this fight. Gane is one of the most technically sound heavyweights we've ever seen. He may be the most talented heavyweight we've ever seen in terms of an all-around, through-and-through skill set. Francis Ngannou, the one-shot power that can shut anyone's lights off, 16 wins, 16 finishes, 5-fight win streak. And you look at that performance he had against Stipe, the leaps and bounds that it seemed that he has grown, not only in his takedown defense, but he looked more there in terms of cardio-wise. I know it only went into the second round, but still, that's a lot for Francis. He doesn't see many second rounds. So there's so many beautiful, ugly, nasty things about this fight, and that makes me so excited to see who the baddest man on the planet is.
So it seems like Ciryl Gane is almost like a proxy for the UFC in this fight. That's not how he probably wants to be perceived.
Yeah.
That's not, I'm sure that's not his intention. But in a way, this whole fight is Ngannou versus the UFC. And Ciryl Gane just so happens to be the opponent, so he's kind of the representative of the UFC. And that's where a lot of the people are probably rooting against him a decent amount. And yes, he did get that interim title fight. People thought, including us, were not happy about. So in a way, it almost feels like maybe he's getting favorable treatment, and I don't really think he is. I'm just saying that's kind of where maybe some of that distaste is coming from. But make no mistake, this is one of the riskiest bets a fighter has ever put on themselves, is what Ngannou's doing here.
Yep.
He is basically putting all his chips on the table, saying, I'm all in. If he wins this fight, it could prove to be one of the smartest decisions a fighter's ever made. But if he loses, he will have no leverage left, essentially.
Nope.
And I'm not saying that he can't still make some great money outside of the UFC, but if he loses, those whispers of a Tyson Fury boxing match goes away.
They dwindle, yes.
Why would the only reason Tyson Fury and Ngannou in any world would be put in a boxing match is because Ngannou is a UFC champion.
Yep.
Once he loses that, the value's gone because he's not the level of boxer that Tyson Fury is.
Right.
It's just putting him against a novice. That's why I'm gonna have it's gonna be hard for me to watch this fight. Like my stomach's just gonna be turning.
Yeah.
Because I'm just gonna be so nervous. This fight, our first pay-per-view that we ever covered on this show was UFC 252, which was headlined by the trilogy bout between Stipe and DC at heavyweight.
Yep.
And I stand by, if you go off of in terms of where both guys stood in their legacy and kind of what they had done up to that point, both had finished each other previously. It was the biggest title fight in UFC history.
Yeah.
This fight feels even bigger.
It does.
In terms of just the longevity of the division, how the future of this division, the future of UFC fighter pay relations and just relations and this feels like this could be a huge turning point in the history of the company. It really does. I can't believe maybe I'm overestimating this fight, but
no, you're not at all.
It feels like if Ngannou wins, the amount of changes that could be seen.
Yep.
Potentially, but if he loses,
then when you talk about the longevity though of the division. When you look at Ciryl Gane, the first potential champion from France, and then we're talking an untapped market over there. They just legalized MMA. The UFC could crash into Paris with Ciryl Gane headlining a card as their heavyweight champion. There's so many huge stakes on the line on both sides of the octagon here, the red and blue corner. I mean, the storylines are truly endless. I haven't felt that there were so many storylines in a title fight in a very long time. I don't think any way up to this on the podcast.
Dominic, that point about Paris came out of nowhere, and yet that could have been the biggest. If this was any other title fight, any other opponent, that could be the biggest seller of the card. Is a potential first champion from France, new market.
Yep.
And yet I haven't heard that come up at all.
Yeah, I know.
So, again, it's a good thing to point out, but all eyes are on Ngannou in this matchup, and Ciryl Gane is no doubt about it. I said this in the nosebleeds. He is the most complete product we've maybe ever seen at heavyweight.
Yeah.
Ngannou looks like he has improved leaps and bounds from the guy who fought Stipe the first time when he beat him the second time.
Yep.
He looked like a guy who could defend a takedown. He looked like he had improved cardio. He looked like he had a more developed offensive skill set. He even looked like his offensive grappling was much improved. That Ngannou that I saw on that night, I feel confident can beat anybody in the world.
I agree.
Baddest man in
100%.
the world.
Yes, unquestionable.
But when it comes to Ngannou, you see him do such explosive moments, and his fights go so quick that when you try to analyze and break down him going up against a lot of opponents, but especially here with Gane, who is a guy who we've seen a lot of, even in a small, he's 10-0.
Yep.
A small sample size compared to a lot of people, but he's had a lot of fights go to decision. But he's also finished some fights in the round, later rounds and stuff. We've seen there's probably, I don't know what the stat is on this, but I would say the amount of time Ngannou's fought in the octagon is potentially less than Gane.
Oh, I'd say that's got to be.
Is that unquestionable?
It's got to be. It's got to be.
I'd like to know the numbers on that. I don't have them, but Ngannou's definitely fought quite a few more times, I would say, in the octagon than Gane. If you try to analyze this fight and try to break it down like we're doing, it's always going to come back to Gane. He's the more technical heavyweight. He has better skills. He is the more complete package.
Yes.
But he doesn't have the power that Francis Ngannou has. The equalizer, as you said.
Yep.
And that was the debate with the Derek Lewis fight, and it's even a bigger debate now.
Yeah.
So this fight is so up in the air for me. I don't know how it's going to go. But all I know is the outcome will be significant, and I think everybody needs to prepare for that.
Yeah, again, we've seen Gane quite literally perform damn near perfect in the octagon thus far. What was that tweet you sent? Francis has 11 fights in the UFC. They've all ended later than the second round via stoppage. Ciryl Gane has 22 rounds in the UFC. He's won 22 rounds. This fight, man, doesn't get bigger, literally, with the weight class and just in terms of the amount of pressure, the stock of both these guys, the longevity of the division. It goes on and on and on. I cannot wait to see these two locked inside the cage with one another.
I could talk about this fight all day, but
this could be the whole show.
Event. Let's talk about the co-main event a little bit, because this title fight's huge in its own right.
Yes.
Well, it's small, but huge.
But we got the biggest to the smallest.
And this is the trilogy bout. Brandon Moreno this time comes in as the champion, looks to defend for the first time against the man he took the belt from, Deiveson Figueiredo. This wasn't the fight that was supposed to be here. Alexandre Pantoja was tapped to be in this position. This was when the fight was going to be in December. Mm-hmm. UFC moved it to January. Pantoja was out. In steps Deiveson. I was one of those people that thought Deiveson should have moved the bantamweight after the loss. I thought it was very much the final nail on his career at flyweight, which was great, but I thought it was time. So for him to kind of get put in this trilogy bout, I was kind of like, wasn't very confident in it. And then the stat I put out on the nosebleeds about fighters coming off a loss, getting a title fight are 1-10 in that title fight. And, it doesn't necessarily make me very confident that Deiveson really can, equal that, So because of that, it's like he definitely is an underdog, deservedly so. But at the same time, I have a hard time believing he's going to get beaten down as bad as he did in the first one. So, Dominic, what do you think of the decision by Deiveson to kind of say, I don't care what other people think, I'm sticking to this division, I'm going for a belt that I lost in this division? Do you think that there's a potential big payoff here, or do you think it's all short term and he's inevitably going to move up anyways? And then really when it comes to this fight, is this a closer fight than the second time we saw it?
Yeah, so I think this is definitely a statement or a potential statement to be had here on Deiveson's end. I mean, that he's dedicating himself 225 pounds at least to try and regain that title that he once had and once was so dominantly earned. And and I, when I say motivated, I look at, he's changed camps. He's in Arizona now with Henry Cejudo. John Jones has even been training there. I mean, they've built kind of this whole thing around. Zhang Wei Li is training there, or she did for her Rose fight. So they're building a great camp there at Fight Ready MMA in Arizona. And I like the fact that he's getting Henry Cejudo as his lead man, because not only is Henry an Olympic wrestler, and you look at the grappling of Moreno and how elite it is in this division, but Brandon Moreno used to train with Henry Cejudo. Brandon Moreno helped Henry Cejudo get ready for, I believe, it was the Demetrius Johnson rematch, or definitely the first one, but it might have been the rematch too. So there's even history there, and you know how it can be with the King of Cringe, Henry. And I always forget what that guy's with the funky glasses is, like their manager. He's always into the cringy stuff too. Yeah. So they're kind of embracing that role, and Deiveson's kind of just like, oh, I'll roll with the punches here too. And they unembedded, they shot the Lego belt at the gun range to make fun of Brandon Moreno. Anyway, Deiveson, man, making a complete lifestyle change here, moving from Brazil to live in the States. I see a lot of dedication on his end, but Moreno, I just feel right now, after all he's been through, being cut from the UFC and, the back and forth, he's 7-2-2 now in the UFC, but right now, I feel like we're seeing him come into his all and really hit that prime at the perfect time to continue improving his game. And, he's got a whole market behind him, the first Mexican-born UFC champion. There's a lot of pressure on him, too, people, that is Brandon Moreno. So this is a fantastic fight. Again, in terms of Deiveson, I do view it as kind of a motivated Deiveson looking to make a statement. I do think inevitably we'll see him at 135 regardless. But potentially, maybe if he does come in and win this, maybe there is one more that he could fancy at 125. But this is such an interesting fight. I'm not upset that they booked this trilogy. We talked about on the Nosebleeds how Pantoja was originally supposed to get the title fight. He couldn't make the date. Enter Figueiredo for the trilogy. The first one was so fantastic. The second one so one-sided. What are we going to see here in number 3, Noah?
I think it's going to be closer to that first fight, maybe a bit more cautious on both ends.
Mm-hmm.
Moreno, I don't know if either guy, I don't know if they really want to go through what they went through in that first fight. I'm sure they're willing to do so for that belt, but I wonder if there's going to be some caution this time. Caution got thrown to the wind in that first fight. Mm-hmm. The second fight, Deiveson seemed to be the one that was cautious, and Moreno was just all gas
so good
immediately.
Yeah.
And I think that overwhelmed the champion, and that's why you got such a flat performance out of him.
Yeah.
And maybe also compromised by a pretty severe weight cut that he's been making for all these years.
Of course.
So here, part 3, what's really changed? And that's kind of why I still think Moreno's going to get this win, because I don't like it when guys get immediate rematches coming off losses. And as great as Deiveson was as a champion, as much fun as I had following that kind of, what's Deuce de Guerra? Is that his nickname?
Yeah.
God of War.
God of War.
I love that kind of run he had through 2020 and beginning of 2021. But there's not been a ton of time for him to really make those improvements. You did point out that I think he's done more than a lot of the names that 1 in 10. I think he's done more than a lot of those 10 have. I mean, completely changing up his lifestyle, moving to the States. Maybe that'll improve the weight cut, because he does look cut to hell, shredded.
Super lean.
So it's interesting. But you're right. Brandon Moreno just seems to be, I mean, the UFC seem to be buying into him as a champion. The people seem to be buying into him as a champion. Yeah. It could be a great recipe for a long, healthy title reign.
Yeah,
but he's got to get through this one again, show it wasn't a fluke, and then we can start talking about Pantoja, Askarov, Royval, all those guys.
So on and so forth.
Yeah. Let's get into the rest.
Here we are.
Got a few good fights. I think the rest of this card is kind of failing to make the impression that those two title fights are.
For sure.
There's not really like that big third fight.
The
on here.
featured bout,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have said that Ilia Tuporia and Movsar Evloev was that fight.
Yeah, I agree.
For me personally. But obviously Movsar's off. But I still think the Charles Jourdain's fight's good. We'll talk about it. But
Yeah.
let's start with what is our featured bout. Michel Pereira going up against Andre Fialho. So, Michel Pereira, the wild man, who's seemingly kind of, it's like one fight you kind of go, oh, he seems to be kind of bringing it in, reserving himself.
Yeah.
And then the next fight he does a flip.
Off the cage and yeah.
So Dominic here, he's welcoming a newcomer, Andre Fialho, right? This is his first run in the UFC.
Yeah, what a fun UFC debut for Andre here.
And now Andre is pretty experienced in high-level MMA. He was actually on our very first regional showcase card that we covered.
That's true.
That was his last fight. He got a TKO on UAE Warriors 24. But if you go even before that, I mean, he KO'd James Vick in 2021, went 4-0 in 2021. That's something that should be noted. He actually didn't have a win in 2019 or 2020. Then comes out and has a 4-fight win streak like that. He also was he's fought in Bellator a few times.
PFL too, right?
Fought Chris Curtis in the PFL. So he's kind of fought in a lot of high-level fights. I mean, he's definitely, better than your average newcomer. But is it enough to make up the difference when you're going up against Michel Pereira, who seems to, I don't know what his potential is, but it seems pretty high.
Yeah, I agree. Also, by the way, Michel Pereira, 28 years old, looks like he's 45. I'll never get over that.
he literally looks like he's, I swear, he looks like he's about to be the oldest man to ever fight in the octagon, and he's not
doing backflips and cartwheels and all
that.
That
man
shit.
Is 3 years older than us, 4 years older than us. Are you shitting me? We would have went to high school with him.
He would have been
Bullshit.
a senior. Yeah.
Bullshit.
We need to see a birth certificate. I am 12 from the Benchwarmers.
Yes, he's literally Carlos from Benchwarmers.
But then you look at his experience too. I mean, 26-11. He's been there and done that. So again, like I said, for Andre, this is a tough UFC debut. Michel is on a 3-fight win streak, so when we say he is pulling it in, he's just putting together more well-rounded performances with still a trickle of some pizzazz every now and again. So I'll be curious to see how he does in this one. For Andre, more of the unknown. We got to see him fight that one time on UAE. He went 3-0 in that promotion. We know how the UFC's big in that market, so they're probably thinking, this could be a potential guy from that region we could, target here. He's only 27. They're both basically the same height and have the same reach. So this could be a super fun fight regardless, because you look at a guy like Michel, he has 17 finishes. Andre's finished 12 out of 14. Are we going to see Michel be patient? Are we going to see him kind of throw caution to the wind? There's a lot of different ways this could play out, but I'm definitely intrigued. I don't know. The betting lines are scrolling here, but I'm trying to, what is he right now? Michel's at -278. Andre's a +215. So, those are kind of pretty big odds there for both guys. Don't be surprised if an upset happens. This is going to be a fun scrap.
Yeah, I definitely think for Fialho, his biggest credit is that he's fought high-level competition. So I don't think he's going to be overwhelmed by this fight. And really, if Michel Pereira starts doing a lot of his wild stuff, the reason why he has those, 11 losses on his record is because he just kind of does things.
He makes himself vulnerable.
Yes, exactly. He puts himself at risk too often.
Or he'll tire himself out,
Yes. And if he does that here with Fialho, I could easily see Fialho kind of sneaking by with the victory.
Yeah, for sure.
Following that, this one is probably my third most anticipated fight on the card, I would say now. And that's going to be Cody Stamann, who just dropped from the top 15, but clearly right there.
Yeah.
Going up against Said Nurmagomedov.
You heard it right, people.
That's right. Nurmagomedov, Dominic. You hear that last name and
I shit myself.
Trouble is potentially ahead.
Yeah.
But what should the people know about Said Nurmagomedov and what his potential and skill set is in the UFC?
Yeah, obviously, the floor is the ceiling. Is that what Michael Jordan said at that one game? Seriously, he has a ton of potential. He's 14-2. He's 3-1 in the UFC. He is coming off of a loss. Who I forget who it was to. I'm blanking. You might have to look that up for me. But he's regardless has a good record. He's got 7 wins via finish, but he's 29. He's entering that prime. He's 5'8". He's got a 70-inch reach. He's got a 5.5 inch reach advantage over Cody. But I don't necessarily think this is like some walk in the park, grind it out. I'm going to wrestle you. I'm going to get the decision win. Cody Stamann is a legitimate test here for a guy like Said Nurmagomedov because Cody's been in there with some elite level talents. He's a great grappler in his own right. So, he's coming off of a 2-fight losing streak though, so there's a bit of some pressure here, if you will, on Cody Stamann. So he could kind of try and come out and make a statement against this newcomer for Said, looking to pick up where he left off with those first 3 UFC wins. This is likely not going to be the most exciting fight, but I do just want to see Said Nurmagomedov get tested in the grappling because you're not going to see that very much throughout his career because he's always going to have the leg up.
His loss was to Raoni Barcelos.
Okay, who's also on this card.
But he followed that up with the knockout win.
Over, so he is coming off of
Mark Striegel.
Gotcha.
Well, I think what's interesting about Said is, yes, he obviously has the grappling skill set because he comes from Dagestan,
of course,
with the Nurmagomedovs, but tends to be a bit striking heavy, don't you think? I mean, he kind of is he seems much more advanced than a lot of these guys that come from there for
He'll
his
throw
striking.
Some spinning kicks in and all
kind
kinds
of. It's kind of like when you hear. I mean, who is it? Like Zabit's not from Dagestan, right? But he's like.
I'd have to look that up. I don't know about Zabit.
Okay, but
I get where you're going with the skill set.
You typically, when you hear Dagestan, you think of wrestler and wrestling bears and shit.
Yes.
Said's not really that. I mean, he's a bit more of a
from a different cloth.
Yeah, he's more of a well-rounded fighter than that. And while that might mean here of Cody Stamann, maybe Cody might even have somewhat of a potential advantage in the wrestling. I don't know, but I definitely worry if this fight stays on the feet. I mean, I think Said he is a bit of a longer guy. That's another thing about him that makes him stand out compared to a lot of the products in this area is that he's
built like Zabit, honestly.
Yeah, he's a bit more lanky, long. Cody's a bit more stout and compact. Will he be able to close that distance? We'll see. I think Said Nurmagomedov has some really high potential with the fact that he's already feels like a more complete product than many that come from there.
Mm-hmm.
But it is definitely his biggest test since his loss to Barcelos, and it's probably a bigger test than that fight was.
I would agree, yeah.
So you look at kind of his wins. I mean, the TK over Ricardo Ramos was really good, but besides that, he's got decision wins over Justin Scoggins and a KO over Mark Striegel. I don't even know who those 2 guys are. I don't know if they're in the UFC anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why, it's a big jump. So we'll see if he's able to live up to the family name, but not an easy task going up against someone who's fought the best of the bantamweight division.
Yes, 100%.
Following that one, Ilia Topuria is going up against Charles Jourdain. Jourdain taking this fight on a little over a week notice. Is that right?
Yeah.
So we just talked about this fight being announced, and yes, it's not Topuria versus Movzar, and I was so excited for that fight. But Dominic, look at the odds and shit. I mean, people are sleeping on Charles Jourdain here, are they not?
Oh, well, I mean, 1,000,000%. Right now, Ilia Topuria is over a 500 favorite. I'm waiting for it to scroll across the bottom there. But Charles Jourdain, I think he's plus 380. I mean, that's insane odds. While it's not the 2 undefeated prospects going up against one another with Topuria and Evloev, Charles Jourdain's last performance was so impressive to me, man. I know it was Andre Ewell's debut at featherweight. I get it. There's a bit of an asterisk. But damn, Jourdain looked good. His best performance, in my personal opinion, inside the UFC. And if anything, I just think he poses a completely different threat to Topuria here than what Movsar would have offered. And for that reason alone, that plus 380 looks mighty fine. Not that I'm not putting money down. Well, you'll have to listen to the nosebleeds to see if I put money on it. But small plug. But I think this is actually going to be a pretty fun scrap. Of course, I could see Ilya getting the better of Jourdain here. I mean, this guy's 11-0, 3-0 in the UFC, 10 of 11 wins via finish. He's an absolute stud. One of the future pieces of this featherweight division, no doubt. But Jourdain can make things ugly. He can make things scrappy, and he could potentially put Topuria here into some interesting predicaments and maybe just force him to fight the fight he doesn't want to go in for in terms of his game plan and strategy. So, again, while Topuria could be obviously he's a huge favorite on this card, I don't think it's a walk in the park by any means.
No, not at all. I mean, Ilya Topuria, hype deserved. I mean, he's part of that. He's part of that Georgian takeover, not Georgia, not the state of Georgia,
right?
But the country. That's where guys like Iga Chikadze come from, and people like that. So he is definitely deserved of the hype, and I do think that this guy's going to be a problem for years to come. But Charles Jourdain, I don't even know if it's about making the fight ugly. I just think he's a high-level opponent to be going up against here. I mean,
he's a threat, man.
And Jourdain, one of his biggest skills is just, even when he's kind of getting beat, when he's losing, he's constantly using a high fight IQ to find those little holes, find those little spaces for victory, for moments of victory, basically.
Yeah.
It's how he beat Doo-Ho Choi. He was able to catch him when Choi was kind of winning the majority of that fight. And I always go back to that fight because I was so shocked that my Korean Superboy lost. But Jourdain has looked more complete since that fight. I mean, that was his coming out party, but you're right. His last performance, he looked fantastic. Against Andre Ewell, yes, I know, debut in the division, but Andre Ewell's a good opponent.
Yes.
And that's why here, I definitely think that Jourdain taking this fight on short notice hurts him. But you've seen, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world if Jourdain won this fight. I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Following that, another super intriguing bout. We just talked about this one on the nosebleeds. Michael Morales, the 12-0 stud coming from the Contender Series, makes his debut in the promotion going up against an 8-fight UFC veteran in Trevin Giles. So Dominic, Michael Morales, 21 years old, one of the youngest fighters on the entire roster. Trevin Giles, the veteran here, but a guy who's still only, 28 in his
29, yeah, he's young.
So he's still kind of a guy right in his prime, coming off a tough loss, one that he got kind of flash KO'd in. I guess, where does this matchup go for you? Where do you, when you're breaking down this matchup and you're evaluating both guys who both seem to really bring something to the table here. Morales has got the youth and he's got that high ceiling and such a finisher. But Trevin Giles has been doing this longer. He's been doing it at a higher level as of late and seems to be a bit more tested. So where do you go when you're breaking down the X's and O's here? Where do you think who's going to stand out, I guess, and what is it going to take to get the victory?
Yeah, the experience of Giles is something that can't be underestimated here. I really do believe so. With 8 fights in the UFC, winning more than half with a 5-3 record, he's a guy that finishes fights as well. We look at Michael, who's 12-0 with 10 finishes. I mean, Trevin Giles is 14-3. That's a solid record. 11 wins via finish. So he's going to be a threat. I mean, this is one hell of a debut here if you're Michael Morales to come in. But you're talking if you come in and can win, that's a statement, boom, right off the bat. For what it's worth, we discussed this on the nosebleeds as well. Take note that Trevin Giles is making his debut at 170 pounds at welterweight, so we're curious to see how he's going to kind of fill into that frame. Is he going to look good on Friday morning? Obviously, when you're listening to this, hopefully he made the weight, and I don't doubt that he will or anything. I'm just saying, put that in the back of your head on
this
one.
Never know.
Exactly. And for Morales, when you look at that Contender Series fight, yes, he went the distance, but it was one that he just looked so damn good throughout for 3 rounds. And Dana White, this is one of the guys that he was most high on throughout all of Season 5 was Michael Morales here. 21 years old. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage over him or over Giles. And when you have the striking of Morales and the reach, that could play a very big factor here in the way that he wants to kind of approach this bout in the stand-up realm. So I think this is a very close fight on paper. It's the closest fight in terms of betting odds, at least as of now, on the fight card. Again, Morales, this is a very hard debut. And why I'm on the word of debut, I had to bring this up because I saw this tweet earlier. Let me bring my phone here so I can get it quote for quote. UFC 270 has 8 fighters set to make their UFC debut, which is the most on a pay-per-view or numbered card since UFC 180 in November of 2014. The 8 debuts are the most for a UFC show overall since UFC Fight Night 157 in August of 2019, which also had 8. So a lot of newcomers here on this card, which is exciting, and that does include Michael Morales here against Trevin Giles.
It's a great way to kind of cap that one off. I like that. That's kind of part of the reason why the rest of this card feels like when you just go down the card and you're just reading off the names, it feels a bit underwhelming once you get past the top 2 fights. But after our breakdown right now, tell me that you're not more excited for those fights. I mean,
no, I mean, this is some of the future here of the business of the UFC that we could see make a statement, this weekend.
It's not even about the debuts, though. I'm just saying, like, in general, we just went through 4 other fights outside of the top 2. We covered 6. Some of those are very high level, very meaningful fights. I mean, Stamen and Nurmagomedov, Tuporia, Jourdain, Morales, Giles. I mean, Pereira, Fiallo is a bit more on the fun side, but those other 3 are very impactful fights, in my opinion. And if Pereira wins, he might be top 15 next. I mean,
he's right there.
He's right there. So this card, it could feel a little thin. I don't even know if people are actually complaining about that. I think the heavyweight fight is carrying this thing so hard. That people probably don't even know there's another 11, 12.
They probably don't even know the other title fights happening.
but honestly, like, I kind of fell into it too when I first looked at it because, the UFC, especially at the end of 2021, I mean, their pay-per-view cards were some of the best we've ever seen. And I was looking at it, I was like, okay, it's a little thin once you get past the top 2. But once I really got in there, dug a little deeper, this card is still fantastic. Still a lot of great bouts. But ultimately, what matters most, Dominic, it's got to deliver Saturday night.
That's right.
But that's going to wrap it up for this weekend preview edition of the podcast. Make sure to join us this Monday. We'll be giving you guys the recap to all the action that took place on Saturday. Anything else that stood out to us, any fight announcements, and the regional showcase will be back.
Oh, yes.
It's been about a month since we've done it, so it's been a while.
Yeah, don't think we forgot, people.
Yeah,
okay?
We did forget last week, but I'll take the blame for that one. I kind of just
listen. The fights were coming back. We were getting, back in the swing of things.
I just moved. I mean, just give me a break.
We started the nosebleeds. There was a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. But this Sunday, we will be going over a new promotion.
Yeah.
Jorge Masvidal's Icon FC 1. They're debuting on Fight Pass this Friday, 7 p.m. It's an MMA promotion. Apparently, Jorge Masvidal is going to become this big time promoter now.
A mogul,
because he owns Gamebred FC, which is bare knuckle. Now he's got Icon FC, which is MMA. And apparently he has plans, from what I read online, to buy a boxing promotion and a grappling promotion. So
look at this guy.
I love it. So Jorge Masvidal's Icon FC 1. Hopefully all fighters get paid on the card. I'm looking at you, Alaska FC. But I just can't help myself sometimes.
No, it's okay. Rightfully so.
But anyways, make sure to check that out on Monday. Until then, though, Dominic, tell the good people where they can find us on social media.
The good people can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at @DSlee14. And the good people damn sure better find the podcast on Twitter, on Instagram, at BAJ_MMA podcast.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @NTBaker_. If you go to the link in my bio, there is a link tree that'll present you a list of links to all the platforms the podcast is on, along with social media platforms. So that includes, but it's not limited to, the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. It's all on there. And there's a couple links for today's sponsor, Anchor.
Shout out.
First, leaving a voice message.
Come on.
Yep. Let us know your thoughts on these fights. Any questions you have, we can answer them, put you on the show. We can give you a shout out. If you want us to shout out, if you have your own, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you want to plug, or
need to tell someone happy birthday,
just whatever. Make use of that 60 seconds you got to do whatever you want.
Oh yeah.
Also, there's a link on there if you want to become a supporter of the podcast. So any support on there just be greatly appreciated. But that's it. We're out, and we're going to see y'all on Monday.